Okay, so the meaning and calculation of unemployment. Um, this is the second of the major indicators. We did GDP, today's unemployment. We'll talk about inflation on Monday. And this whole course becomes how these three interact, right? If you're trying to fix unemployment, how does it affect inflation and GDP, and so on, okay? So there's two things we look at when we look at the unemployment rate. We look at those who are working at least 1 hour per week. We call those people employed, right? And that's important to recognize because most people would like to work more than 1 hour per week, right? And we'll talk about this in a minute when we look at some of the limitations of the unemployment rate, right? Um, you can look at the cartoon, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. He's a discouraged worker, which we'll get to. If you're not working, but you are seeking work, and this is the key, you must be looking for work, you're going to be considered unemployed. If you're not working and you're not seeking work, like our friend over here in the cartoon, if he gives up, you're called a discouraged worker. These people are not counted as part of the labor force, right? They're not counted as part of the unemployment rate, right? And this becomes really important because you know what happens when you start messing with the bottom number of a fraction or the top number, right? It's going to change everything. If you start taking people out of being unemployed, it might make the unemployment rate look better, but does it tell us anything about our economy? No, people giving up looking for work is not a good thing. Okay? So we have employed and unemployed, and then we have discouraged workers. So here are the two main formulas that you need to know. The labor force participation rate is the unemployed and the employed over the population. Okay? And we include the population as anyone 16 and over, not institutionalized, meaning they're not in jail, they're not in mental institutions, so on. And then we have the unemployment rate, which is the number of unemployed over the labor force, okay, which is the employed plus the unemployed. You must know these formulas. We'll practice with them tomorrow. Like I said, this is the easiest part of Unit 2 is unemployment. So let's take a look at this. We have 70 million under 16, 50 million not in the labor force, 135 million that are employed, and 15 million that are unemployed. So see if you can sort of think of these to yourself before I show you the answers. So what would the population be for unemployment calculations? 200 million. We take the unemployed, the employed, and not in the labor force. The labor force, that's unemployed plus employed, 135 plus 15. That gives us 150 million. What's the labor force participation rate? It's the number of employed plus unemployed. That's the labor force over the population. So you get 150 million over 200 million, and our labor force participation rate is 75%. And the unemployment rate, okay, we get the number of unemployed over the labor force. Okay? And so you take 15 million over 150 million, and your unemployment rate is 10%. Okay, you will do plenty of practice with this. Again, the math is, easy as can be. It's just understanding how they all work together. So let's look at some criticisms of the unemployment rate, right? First is it doesn't talk about underemployment, right? If I'm working 1 hour a week, but I want a full-time job, there's not anywhere that we talk about, right? There actually, to be honest, there are 6 unemployment rates. There's U1, U2, U3, U4, U5, and U6. We only talk in this class about U3, but there also is U5, U6, where they talk about some of these other things. For our purposes, though, the main unemployment number, when you look the first Friday of every month, they're talking about U3, which doesn't count people that are working less than they want to. And it doesn't count people that have a job that doesn't match their skill set or people that are underemployed, right? So, you went to school for 4 years and then you got your master's degree and now you're working as a bartender, right? Look, nothing wrong with bartenders. I like bartenders, they're great. But that's not what you went to school for, right? You went to school because you wanted to go be a psychiatrist or whatever, right? That's not counted in the unemployment rate. That's a problem. And it doesn't capture discouraged workers. What if 100 million people just gave up looking for work? What's going to happen to the labor force? The labor force will get smaller. The unemployment rate will go down. It'll look great, but is having more discouraged workers a good thing? No, I don't think so. We don't want people that have given up and said, you know what, this economy's terrible. I don't think I can make any money. I'm done. This is awful, right? So those are some criticisms of the unemployment rate. That's it. Thanks for coming and listening.